You folks ready?
Come on in. Come on in, guys.
Is this thing on?
Renee's right over behind.
All set?
Let's make sure the media's all ready.
No. Is this thing ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We're good.
Well, good afternoon, folks. I hope you can hear me. If you can't, please come in a little bit closer. I'm Dave Burns from Whiting. I'm the chair of the Washington County Commissioners right now. And I want to welcome all of you here today. Thank you for coming out to meet with us today. We really appreciate it, especially those who drove a long ways. Washington County is a very important place, and anytime we can get your presence down here, we appreciate it. We're here today to talk a little bit more about the anticipated bond vote on November 4th, and also the county budget that we're working on. And we thought it would be very important for you folks to hear and our constituents to hear kind of an update on where we are with the budget process and where we are with the bond. We want to today encourage people to seriously considering supporting the bond issue, and you'll hear from myself and others how important that is for the citizens of Washington County to be passed on November 4th. We've had, we're going to have each of our groups have a representative speak for a few minutes, and then after that there will be an opportunity for question and answers from any and all of you, and Commissioner Hammond will moderate that. As you know, we've had many public hearings to talk about our upcoming budget as well as the upcoming bond issue, and we know that there are still some questions. We want to go over some of the things we've gone over in the past and maybe give you some updates that you haven't heard. So some of these things are going to be repeated that you've heard, but bear with us. It's important. Sometimes we have to hear things several times before we can get it. So as I've mentioned before in some of these other public meetings, we compiled a list of what we call good faith efforts that have risen out of comments that we've received from the general public, from our bond counsel, from our auditor, from the commissioner's staff and my fellow commissioners, from other counties, their managers and their financial people, and again, mostly from the public. So we've tried to address all of those points that have been made to us and questions that have been asked and suggestions that have been made to things that we should pursue. So out of that list of, well, it's over 24 different things that we've been pursuing, and I'm not going to stand here and read those again for you today, but there's a few of them that I want to restate and re-emphasize that I think are very important. As you probably already know, the commissioners sought and secured the resignation of our former treasurer. So as we go through today, as we talk about the issues, please keep in mind all of your commissioners here in Washington County are new this year. The county manager is relatively new, and our treasurer is new. So that's important. Commissioners hired a provisional treasurer, Grace Falzerano, who's here with us today, and also appointed a deputy treasurer. Commissioners tasked the financial office and others to review current and past practices, detect errors and procedures that contributed to our current budget crisis stemming from the past administrations. And we'll talk about some of those today. As they come together, as we finalize those, they'll be made public and they'll be on our website so that people will have assurance that we are going to follow up on what we've promised. And unique this year, your county commissioners met with each department head over a period of 3 days back in the winter, and went over their proposed budget for 2026 line by line, and worked with the department heads to try to find areas that might need reducing or might need increases. So that was a step, some of the steps that we took. We are presently, in response to a lot of questions, we're presently working to obtain accounting services from another firm besides the ones that we have right now that's currently working on the 2022 budget. So that's underway. We don't have a firm commitment yet, but that's in the forefront of, and we know that's important to be done because 2023 and 2024 need to be completed. The commissioners tasked the county manager to produce a plan for cost savings and for the 2025 to get us through the year, including restrictions on travel, overtime, non-critical purchases, and hiring, if necessary, personnel layoffs. We hope that's not going to be necessary. And one more I want to mention: commissioners unanimously voted to borrow or expend more than $8 million of that bond should it pass. As you all know, probably the bond is up to $11 million. That's what's on the ballot. But we've made the commitment, both in a vote and also in a pledge, not to draw down more than we need to pay off the TAN, and that would be a maximum of $8 million. Currently, the TAN is $7.6 million plus interest. So that's our commitment to the taxpayers. And those are some of the things that were on that long list. And by the way, the list is going to be online after this press conference. So it's there for all of you to take a look at those 22, 24, 26 different items. We've been asked on many occasions about accountability for the situation that we find ourselves here in Washington County with the finances. And I want to try to address that the best that I can. I've tried to address it in the past. I want to emphasize the fact that nobody within Washington County government suspects that anything was done intentionally to get us into this crisis. But there were a lot of accounting errors made and a lot of decisions that probably shouldn't have been made. And once we found out that there was one in particular, which was the one-time transfer this year of money from the UT budget into the general budget, our auditor notified us immediately that once he discovered it, that was an inappropriate action. And so we followed that up with contacting the district attorney's office. And the district attorney then in turn, because of conflict of interest, and by the way, he's here today if you have questions about it, he he moved that on to the Maine Attorney General's office. And because the county has expended the ARPA funds from that were primarily for the new sheriff's building and some other plans, the U.S. Attorney's Office was also notified. So it's my understanding that those two departments are collaborating together. We're waiting to hear from them to get specifics. So that's where we are as far as that is concerned. Again, I want to emphasize that we don't have any reason to believe that anything was done intentionally, but there was a lot of mistakes made, a lot of errors, and that's got us into the situation we're in right now. So with that, I'm going to ask some of the other representatives of their groups, and the first one will be from our Budget Advisory Committee. The chair of that is Brian Schuth. So, Brian, would you come up, please? And you've got to have this fuzzy thing. Good luck. Good job.
Hope that'll do. Yes, I'm Brian Schuth. I'm the chair of the Budget Advisory Committee. I have a number of members of our committee here as well, behind me. The committee spent about the better part of a month discussing the county's financial crisis. While the committee is profoundly disturbed by the chain of events that left the county unable to pay the $8 million tax anticipation note due at the end of the year, it's also deeply concerned about the catastrophic effects of failing to pay that debt. we've passed the following resolution. The Budget Committee supports the proposed bond as recently amended by the Commissioners for up to $8 million, that money to be used exclusively to retire the existing tax anticipation note. The bond offers the only responsible method for addressing the county's financial crisis. It will allow the county to avoid default on the tax anticipation note. It will give municipalities flexibility in how to address the crisis, and it will buy the county time to pursue any alternative methods it may discover for resolving the crisis. We passed that a little over a week ago. If the bond does not pass, the committee's ability to continue to do their work on the budget will be severely compromised. The budget process has already identified over $600,000 in reduced expenses, and we have plenty more work to do. But the county is going to face the unprecedented prospect of running out of money unless another mechanism can be found to pay the $8 million debt. This could have a devastating effect on public safety, as almost 3/4 of the county's expenses go to maintain 911 dispatch, sheriff's patrol, the jail, and emergency management. The committee regrets the need for the bond, but cannot see any other responsible solution. And with that, I'll pass that to our vice chair, Ben.
Mike. You're gonna have to
That out of your way.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Edwards. I am the vice chairman, as Brian said, of our budget committee. I want to take a few minutes to address some of the most common questions that we have been hearing from the public. So the first is, what happens if the bond does not pass? If the bond does not pass, we will be in an unprecedented financial situation. At this moment, there is only one option available, and that would be to add the full $8 million needed to pay off the TAN directly to next year's tax commitment. To put that into some kind of perspective, if the county's operating budget, let's say for example, is $12 million for 2026, adding the $8 million payoff would bring the total to $20 million for that 1 year. This is exactly why the bond is so important. While some municipalities might be able to absorb a one-time increase like that, for many it would be a serious financial hardship. So to put this in very simple terms, we either pass the bond now and give the municipalities the flexibility to pay off the debt in a way that works best for them and for their taxpayers, or we don't pass the bond and every municipality will face the full weight of the $8 million payoff in a single year. Second, can the county just not pay the TAN and force the bank to renegotiate? Unfortunately, no, we cannot. If we default, we would still owe the same $8 million, but likely at a much higher court-ordered interest rate. More importantly, the county depends on borrowed money through a tax anticipation note to operate for about 9 months of every year. If we default now and damage our credit, not only would the interest rate on the existing TAN be much higher, but the rate on next year's TAN, if we could even obtain one, would also most certainly be much higher. So defaulting won't make the debt disappear, it would just make it more expensive every single year moving forward. Third, there's been some confusion about the due date on the TAN. The note from the bank is technically due mid-February. However, under state law, the county is required to retire the TAN within the same fiscal year it was issued. This means that it must be fully satisfied by December 31st. That deadline cannot be extended. So finally, how is this going to affect our personal taxes? So let me first start by saying we all understand how difficult any increase will be. Everyone has been hit with higher costs in recent years, from property valuations to fuel to utilities. None of us takes this lightly. That said, I think it's very important to put this into perspective. On average, the county portion of our property tax bills makes up roughly 10% of the total. This varies from municipality to municipality, but for the sake of an example today, we're going to say it's 10%. That is about the average. Sorry, bear with me here. So if your tax bill was $1,000, about $100 of that would go to the county. A 40% increase in the county portion would mean roughly $40 more per year. And of that, about $10 would represent the bond that we're discussing today. So to restate this very simply, for an average $1,000 tax bill in Washington County, the bond would mean roughly a $10 increase on your tax bill. Of course, it will vary by municipality. And to help residents understand their specific situation, we've developed an online calculator that will be available on the county website in the coming few days. You will be able to select your municipality, enter your total tax bill from last year, and see an estimate of both the county increase and the portion related to the bond. So in closing, I would like to say this situation is very serious and very unfortunate, but it is solvable. The bond represents a responsible, measured path forward, one that meets our obligations and protects taxpayers from far greater costs, both now and in the future. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask our Senator, Mary Ann Moore, to come up and give a brief summary, and the thing, of what's been going on with the legislative level, and also some closing thoughts. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today, and I really do appreciate your interest in this very serious situation. I am Mary Ann Moore, and I am the state senator for Washington County. I also have 16 communities in eastern Hancock County, and as you can imagine, it was very disturbing for us to learn as the Washington County delegation what is actually happening and what's happened with our financial situation. But it is one that it's happened, and we really are concerned about it, and we immediately jumped in to see what could we do. I know following the county manager did reach out to Matt Dunlap, who is actually the state auditor. I reached out to him along with Representative Stroud, who is also here today, asking, what happens? Does the state take receivership if we are not able to pay our debts? How does that work? And the answer was, I don't know. It's never happened before. We're in uncharted area, an uncharted territory, so to speak. So we were talking to him about, what's the possibility of you helping us out, try to get our audits finished. We realized that we had no idea what a shortfall we had until we actually had our audits in hand. And it wasn't that the county offices were not trying. We had difficulty trying to find auditors. One was hired, one was fired, and we have a whole list of what we tried to do. Once we finally got an audit for 2021, that was when it was brought to our attention of the shortfall that all along we thought we were doing well. We were passing our savings on to the towns, hoping that we would keep everybody's taxes down, only to realize that the money was not there. So I personally also reached out to Joe Perry, who is the state treasurer, and I know Representative Quitt did the same thing. I was asking him, is there any money out there? Is there any way, we really don't want to have to ask our taxpayers to take out this bond that we're going to have to pay interest on and pay back for across a 10-year period. And again, he shakes his head going, there isn't any magic recovery money sitting out there for us. I know that Commissioner Burns even reached out to the governor's office asking the same question. Would she be willing to give us a one-time lump sum of $8 million to get us out of this problem? Because we owe Machias Savings Bank $7.6 million plus interest by December the 31st. It's a debt that we cannot avoid. Again, her office was saying, well, I don't want to set a precedence. Well, then we quickly reminded her that there was some precedent set when they helped out Portland and their asylum seeker housing, that they were able to help fund that. So then we got, well, let me think about it. And so we obviously have not heard back from the office. In order to do that, September 26th was what we call a cloture date, that we had to turn any bills in that we wanted consideration for the next session. So I turned in a bill that requested an $8 million one-time bailout. The results from the Legislative Council this morning was that it was denied. So with further conversation, we started checking, can we even file for bankruptcy? There's a Chapter 9 that allows you to do debt reconciliation, reorganization. Well, we get to checking in statute, and guess what? Maine is one of 22 states that is not allowed. So I did get a bill in before the 26th asking or allowing for counties and municipalities who have shown good effort, that they are trying their best to pay their debts, and they're trying their best to make sure, but they just can't do it, and they need to do some sort of reconciliation of it. I am blessed because the Ledge Council this morning said, yes, we can proceed with that bill. So while it may not help us right now in the situation that we are in, but would give us an opportunity if things go astray and we just are not able to fund and pay our debts, that we might be able to go for a debt reconciliation reorganization under the Chapter 9. But that's yet to be seen. And as you all know, as you follow us in Augusta, it's very slow process in getting any of the bills through. So there's been a lot of conversation that we've done at a state level, taking a look at it. We've looked at the statute, trying to understand when exactly is that tax anticipated note due. Again, we're going back and forth with 12. The bank is saying we can't restructure it because by law, by statute, it must be paid back within 12 months of the initiation of the actual note itself. Well, then that becomes the date. Is it mid-February or is it December 31st? Well, it has to be funds that are part of this year's budget, and our budget, it ends December the 31st. So one of the other things we're also taking a look at, I know the commissioners are working really hard at this. Right now, our fiscal year runs from January 1st through December 31st. And then as Ben Edwards described, for the first 9 months, we are we're in debt. So we have to borrow money to survive because most of our town's years run July 1st through June 30th. So they're not able to even get their taxes aren't even due until November 1st. So that's what causes that need for the tax anticipated note. So we checked into the statute on that, and the commissioners can decide to change our fiscal year. It'd be from January 1st through June 30th and just have a 6-month budget, and then change it to July 1st through the following year and have a 12-month budget. And that would make it easier too on the towns, and it would also make it easier where we would not have to borrow as much money. So there's a lot of work that's been going on behind the scene. We're kicking rocks everywhere, folks, trying to find what we can do. Our county manager, our county commissioners, our finance administration are really working hard to try to see what we can do. The last thing in the world we wanted to do was go back to the taxpayers and say, guess what, we need more money. Because all of us know our property values went up, our property taxes went up, and now here we're saying the county taxes are going up. But as we explained, I know I looked at mine in Calais. My county tax only represents 10% of my bill. So it sounds horrible when you say 10%, but when you start looking at the dollars and cents, I think it was $52. So while it sounds horrible, it is something that we all are going to have to work on to really get us out of this situation. We cannot default on that debt. We really cannot. We will never be able to borrow again. Our name, Washington County's name, would be in mud. It would be mud. And that's not good. It's not good for us. So that's why it's so important that we get the message out, and that's what we've been touting it. We've been going to having all these public hearings, been on the Rick Tyler show, trying to just get the word out to let everybody know, even at the dollar store, trying to explain what's going on with that. So I want you all to know that the people behind me and those that are behind the scenes have really worked hard to try to see what we can do to get us out of this situation. Is it pretty? Do we like it? No, not at all. We really don't. But it's something that we're in, it's happened, and we've got to move forward. And they are putting the policies and procedures in place. I promise you that so that this does not happen again. But we still have to work through the situation that we are in right now. So we're trying to make it, trying to help out for the citizens, trying to make sure and protect our taxpayers, and we do not want to lose our essential services. We talk about Plan B. Plan B, if the bond does not pass, we will have to take a look at our services. There are certain things that we have to provide. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. We can't just shut down the jail and send the inmates home. It doesn't work that way. So, we're trying to look at different ways, but we've got to pass that bond. We are going to have to pay it if the bond passes or not. So thank you again. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Hammond, who's going to kind of coordinate any Q&A that you all might have today. Thank you.
The mic, Mayor.
Oh, fuzzy breath.
Yep.
There you go.
We got Todd.
Is that going to work right there for you? All right. My name's Commissioner Courtney Hammond. I represent the western end of the county, and I'll just try to answer any questions that you might have. We have most of our department heads here. We have our finance department and treasurer, the other commissioners, members of the budget advisory committee. So we'll see what we can do to answer any questions.
Yeah, I called every county commissioner's office in the state of Maine of similar demographic in Washington
as Commissioner Burns stated, we've been through the budget line by line with every department head, and we've looked at every single position in the county. I'm not sure that some of those counties offer all the services that we do. Some of them may not have a jail. Some may not operate a 911 call center, which would obviously be the increased number of persons that you're talking about. But we have looked at potential reductions in force should the bond not pass. But right now, the commissioners have been through the budget line by line. The Budget Advisory Committee has repeated that effort, meeting again with all the department heads and going through those budgets line by line and looking at every single service that the county provides before they make a decision. But yes, we have looked at all those positions right now. And we have some vacancies as well. So we have some vacancies in the Sheriff's Patrol, and we have some vacancies at the RCC as well.
Just for clarification, can somebody tell me when this was first noticed by the people in charge now? When was this first noted? Was it noted in 21, or was it just did you just find about it in 25?
24.
24 budget.
It was late in 2024 when they were beginning to work on the 2025 county budget. That's when the auditor notified them of the big balance.
And the audit was a 2021 audit
Right.
that he was working on.
Okay, so you found out about this, you current people, in 2024.
Well, I've only been here since June 1st.
Okay, so
So-
somebody behind you knew about it in 2024, correct?
All of the commissioners are brand new this year. The treasurer is brand new this year. We replaced 3 members of the Budget Advisory Committee this year. That's the most we could
That's not
elect.
my question.
And
My
the only
question
person
is,
that
who
was
knew
here
about it?
in 2024 was the county manager.
So nobody knew about this until 2024.
Right.
Okay, so maybe it would have been a good idea to let the people know in 2024 that this had happened, and we could have started looking to work things out back then, instead of waiting 2 months before a vote.
Well, the Budget Advisory Committee did do their work in 2024. They have the ultimate say. They have the ultimate say on what happens with that budget. It's not the county commissioners. It's the Budget Advisory Committee that gives the final approval to that budget. And stop shaking your head no, Jeff, because that's the law.
I'm shaking my head no because you said that nobody knew about it until the end of 2024. The treasurer, I understand, told the last county commissioner at the end of July or early August of 2024 about the problem, and 2 of the 3 current commissioners knew about it before they were elected last year. They just waited to tell us about it in August, but they could have told us about it as soon as they were sworn in January if they wanted to.
Okay.
And that's where the problem lies for most taxpayers.
But
We're
it-
just wondering
Don't
why
call
we
me out
didn't
because I know
know.
what some of the facts are, Courtney.
So the budget process didn't start. It doesn't start until later in the year. So
I know, but you knew about it before 2 months ago, right?
I think they knew about the shortfall last year.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the year they knew about it.
It would have been great if we could have known about it then, and we could have all put our heads together to work something out.
And I do know that the Budget Advisory Committee made people aware of that because some of the selectmen were talking about the shortfall back last year.
Can I ask you a question on the bond, Courtney?
Yeah.
I've heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, that if the bond passes, the actual funding for that wouldn't come through until perhaps next spring. Is that accurate, or would the funding be there before the end of the year?
Bond council has said 2 weeks. if
Two
it
weeks.
passes.
2
Right.
weeks?
The bond council has advised us 2 weeks
Okay,
from
thank
the
you.
time the bond passes.
You knew about this in 2024, why did you not put the money from the can into the can this year and instead put it back into the ARPA funds rather than put it into the can?
I can't hear you very well. So.
I said, if you knew about this in 2024, why didn't the TAN money for this year go into the TAN rather than going into the ARPA fund?
Because the ARPA fund money was required to be expended on those projects that were approved when it was authorized to be given to the county.
Okay, but I'm talking about this year's TAN.
So-
January of this year's TAN, why didn't that TAN money go into the TAN? Why did you put it back into the fund to kind of cover up maybe what had taken place?
Because those were invoices that had to be paid. the contractor that built the building had to be paid, and so that's where the money went.
And so who made the decision to build a $6.5 million building if you didn't have a balanced budget?
The former commissioners.
And the budget advisory committee.
So they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, the budget advisory committee had nothing to do with the building.
Okay.
That was the former commissioners.
I just kind of find it ironic too that one of the richest guys in the county is standing up here and telling the poorest county in the state of Maine to pay off the debt from their downfall.
I guess I'm not familiar with that. Any other questions?
Yeah. What measures have been implemented to ensure this doesn't happen again? Why don't we believe this isn't going to happen again in 5-10 years when many of you might be out of office?
So we again, that list that Commissioner Burns referenced that'll be out there, some of the things that are on that are some financial guardrails that have been put in place. They've been voted on and made policy so that these transfers among accounts can't happen again. All grants now need to be approved by the commissioners before they're submitted. So there's been a lot of guardrails. There's also new policies that the finance department and the new treasurer are putting into place, giving us access or giving us like balance sheets every month, which hadn't been happening in the past, as well as any other financial oversight that they're going to see. So the commissioners are a lot more aware of what's going on than what's happened in the past.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's because of lack of auditing that these errors kind of slipped up, right? So is there something that like puts in place like we have to be audited every year? And what is that?
I think the law is already in place as far as getting those audits done. That was the first thing I questioned, is that why weren't those audits done? And once they did the research, I was satisfied that due diligence had been done in trying to find an auditor. Obviously it was COVID, had an impact on that. The county had an auditor that wasn't performing. They let that person go. They put it out for RFP time and time again to try to get an auditor with no responses. And the treasurer and the others even went so far as to contact directly auditing firms to try to engage somebody to do these audits. And so they finally got the auditor who really picked up on what was going on, rang the alarm bells, and he's actually working on, he's finished up 2020, 2021, he's most of the way through 2022, and he's also been looking ahead at 23 and 24 to make sure that there are no big surprises. But in the meantime, we've also contacted an additional auditing firm. We've already exchanged some information with them to try to get these audits caught up in a more timely manner, rather than just relying on one firm to try to get it done.
So do we know if there'll be any more surprises in the new audit that you haven't done yet?
I don't anticipate any with what the current auditor has been looking at.
So where did ARPA money go now? You had the, okay, but you just said the TAM money was that too, to pay off the contract.
That was the cash flow.
So there was a cash flow issue because of the balance forward accounting errors that took place from 2020 through 2024. And so that cash flow shortage was actually covered over by the fact that a portion of the ARPA money had been put into the general operating account. And it wasn't until the invoices were paid for the sheriff's office building, the DA's office building, and then a couple other projects that this real cash flow issue came to light. And so when the commissioners and the budget advisory committee found out about the shortfall in 2024, when they were starting to work on the 2025 budget, there was a knee-jerk reaction to try to cut the budget to the bone. And they went so far as to cut things that they were contractually obligated to pay. And so
No reserves.
there were no reserves at all, zero. And there was no money, for instance, in the liability insurance line. Paid family medical leave was not fully funded. And the list went on and on and on when we started to dig. And they created just a tremendous shortfall in the 2025 budget by what they did. In addition, there were some contractual raises that were approved in 2024 for the county employees. And so, that increased the amount of money that we had to raise too.
10% increase?
That's for some of the unions, yes.
Yeah, I've never heard of a union approving a 10% increase for employees.
Yeah. They did, and I will say that was the first thing that I thought, but it's still, even at the end of 3 years of that contract, puts our employees at the very bottom of the pay scale in the state.
I have another question. The chair of the budget committee is recommending that the bond be passed, and we've heard the commissioners say that they pledged to only take 8 million, but I thought I heard the chair say that they're recommending that the entirety of the bond money go to pay off the TAN, which is only 7.4.
Plus,
And if
plus
that's
interest.
accurate, then what's happening with the other 6?
7.6 million plus the interest on that, up to 8 million.
Well, is there interest on it, or is it 7.6?
It's
What's the accurate
7.6,
number?
7.6 plus interest.
What's the accurate number?
That's why we don't have the final number, but that's why we're
And
saying
that's what-
8 million.
That's what I'm kind of asking you about, because your bond is for 11 million. You made a pledge today for 10, but you told us that you're
Eight.
legally,
Eight.
sorry, 8, but you're legally required to pay it off. What if it's 8.5? Are you going back on your word and taking 8.5 out of that bond instead?
Nope, it's
Where's
been
the
a
other
vote.
5 coming from then?
Salary savings.
Well, so you can save $500,000 somewhere else.
We've got vacant
Why
positions
aren't
that
we doing that?
We are.
we are saving every penny we can.
Your numbers don't add up. That's the problem with this. The $11 million bond is renewable year to year, and these guys have the authority, you as one of them, to change your mind when you want to and borrow the other 3.
No.
I'll give you my pledge that I'll not do that.
I don't accept the pledges from people that have lied to us already and that have
Whoa,
hidden.
whoa, time out. We called John out, yeah.
I asked the 3 commissioners at the very first public meeting whether there had been a transfer of money from the UT fund to the general fund, and I was told no in front of 100 people.
You were told yes, and that the money had been put back. I was
No,
there,
I was
Jeff.
not.
You were
I was
told,
told
you were
no
told
in front of
no, and
100
it's in the
people.
public record.
Yep.
It's in the public record, sir.
That,
You
I
that
was
money.
told no in front of 100 people,
Yeah,
a lot of who are
that's-
standing
okay,
right
so-
here.
This is a media opportunity.
Come up with something positive for change.
I'm just trying to answer the question. I've been here for 4 months. So, question?
Yeah, so I was trying to hear while others were talking in the rear, so I might have missed it, but it seems like that, you said there was 600,000 that had been cut already. I think maybe Mr. Burns had said that when they were going down, the budget advisory committee was going down through 600,000 that had been identified. Is that for between now and December 31st, or is that for the 26th budget?
No, that.
For the next one.
That's for the next budget. But we do have some current salary savings because of the vacancies and some other issues
Okay,
for this year.
That was my next question, is that what have we done between now and the end of the year to already start that savings process? What cuts have already been made?
So we've not allowed any travel, no expenses over $500 without approval from the commissioners. We haven't filled any of the vacant positions that currently occur. We've held some other positions open longer, and we've tried to save every penny that we could in this current budget cycle, knowing that going into 2026 there could be a significant shortfall. And if the bond doesn't pass, you know, there are things that we're required by law to provide, like the jail, civil service, the 911 system, things like that, that we don't have the money to operate for. But if we can save as much money as we can, it would extend the time that we can operate until we can come up with some other solutions.
And the other point was that I understand why you can't give a definitive answer to what the amount is going to be. Because if the bond is approved and you get the money in 2 weeks, the interest is gonna be different than if you don't get the money
Thank you
in
for
45
understanding
days.
that. That's correct.
One of the other options that's been put out there, and it actually came from some of our selectmen around the county, was an option for those towns that had the ability to pay off their portion of that TAN without having to incur any interest. And so that did come from some municipal officials around the county, and there are several towns that are exploring that option. Every town that does that reduces that TAN amount that will have to be paid back, and obviously the interest that goes with it.
Mr. Hammond, what is the borrowing cost on that bond?
What? They're estimating.
Well, I mean, we had to go with the worst case scenario, which when we put that forward, it had to be at the Secretary of State's office to be included on the referendum, on the ballot. By Friday, it was Wednesday afternoon. And so it was kind of a worst case scenario. It was kind of a worst case scenario, and if I remember right, is at 7%. And so the debt service on the bond, the 11 million as initially proposed, was about $1.4 million a year, which would be maybe a little over 10% of our budget.
Is
And
that rate fixed now, or is
No.
it subject?
No,
so
that-
you really don't know what the interest rate is.
right, that bond, that would all be negotiated with the financial lending institution when that happens.
You're saying up to 6%.
Because so many layers, I guess, let us down in the past 4 or 5 years. I guess how many people have you actually fired?
We haven't fired anybody. The treasurer is an elected position.
They're bonded, correct?
Correct.
Are you going after that bond?
That's why everything's been referred to the Attorney General's office and the U.S. Attorney's office. That's a yes. Any other questions?
Connie, will the accounting figures be put on the website?
They're already there, and then there'll be additional information will be posted as
The
it becomes.
balance sheets and the profit and loss statements will be put on the website?
Yeah.
The question was, would the balance sheets and the profit and loss statements be put onto the county's website?
If instructed. If instructed.
If instructed to by the commissioners, yes.
I'm going to make that recommendation.
I would. Yeah, absolutely.
What about the bank records for the last 4 or 5 years that the auditor's been working on for a year? Why don't you just make those records available to the public?
The
We
bank,
can all take a look for ourselves.
the bank records?
They're public records, aren't they? Why don't we just put those out there and then everybody can take a look under the hood themselves?
Talking provided if they're asked for.
Yeah.
You're
One
welcome to come
request.
to the office and ask them.
I don't know what it would take to post that out
Yeah,
there.
there's
So,
a lot.
yeah, you can put a request in.
Requests have been made and they've been honored.
Right. Any other questions?
I've heard that, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that kind of discussions about the budget itself have kind of been stopped until kind of the this bond is either just the decision of the bond is made. I guess just are you guys expecting that 40% to kind of stay at the 40% that you guys have kind of just seen or proposed? I guess as of now, do you expect that to change substantially depending on if the bond is voted yes or no?
I mean, the 40% or the 39 and change is the budget that the commissioners provided to the Budget Advisory Committee. That also included the $1.4 million in debt service on the bond, which was $11 million if it were approved. You know, obviously at this point we've made the commitment that we're not going to borrow more than 8, so that reduces that amount. The Budget Advisory Committee has been working, I mean, very hard, like we did, to go through that budget line by line, meeting with every department head, and trying to determine what level of services are appropriate for the county. And so I wouldn't want to put words in their mouth as far as what they're going to do with the budget. Ultimately, when they're done their work, they'll finish up after the election on November 4th. They'll give that back to the commissioners. We'll review it, possibly make changes to it, but ultimately it will go back to them for the final stamp. They get the final say on that budget. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask a question of the budget committee? Maybe they know. If the bond didn't pass and we had to put the whole $8 million onto next year's budget, what would the actual increase be? You gave us a figure of $10 per thousand for the 1.4 million, so would it be about $50 extra per thousand? Has anybody run those numbers?
Hard to do that off the top of my head, but you can rough it out, right? So the $1.4 million is currently included at about 10%.
Yep.
So you can figure if it was 1.4 equals 10%, then $8 million would be a whole lot more. So effectively, it's
about
hard.
5 times,
You're
5.5
in the,
times.
you're in the ballpark.
So it'd
Yeah.
be about an extra $50 per thousand with a one-time hit for
One time.
taxpayers, and our children wouldn't have to pay it for 10 years, and there'd be no interest.
Right, so that's an option anyway, and this is an important thing, and it's been alluded to already. Each municipality can choose to pay the bond off immediately and not take the money at all. So that's effectively the same thing. This is where the bond is of interest. If you are a municipality that can afford to pay the bond off, or feels like that's what makes the most sense based on your undesignated fund balance or just your financial picture, you can choose to, and then that doesn't get passed on to the taxpayers directly. If you are, for example, a smaller municipality with less undesignated fund balance and you don't feel like you can do that, you could utilize the bond for up to 10 years to spread the costs out however it makes sense for you. So that's the idea with the bond, is that each municipality can make the choice that makes the most sense for them. Without the bond, we all have no choice. We're going to have to deal with it in 1 year.
But the one hit would be about $50 to $55 per thousand on the tax bill for anybody who owns property.
I think you'd be better off going home and doing the math, but I would say something like that. It's $8 million spread over 40 municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If the bond doesn't pass, or what's the next
It's up to the Budget Advisory Committee.
We just said it.
Yeah, I mean,
We just answered the question.
we obviously will have to work. If the bond does not pass, the Budget Advisory Committee will most likely roll the $8 million into the budget. We obviously will have to take a very hard look at the rest of the budget to see what we can keep and what we can and what has to go. And that's going to come down to the Budget Advisory Committee going around to our constituents and asking people what services they want and what services they want to cut. And if you look at the budget, there is really no way to make any substantial cuts without cutting bodies. And that means cutting service levels. And if that's what people want, then that's what will get done. But at this point, we need to wait.
I just find it hard to believe that every other county within a similar demographic is run with 35 less people than Washington County.
So that's an interesting thing. So one of the things that I did and I've been here about a month, but one of the homework things that I started to do is try to understand Washington County versus the other counties, right? But we are unique. Every county is unique. We're physically very large. Each county carries essentially the same overhead. We're statutorily obligated to have the same services. But of course, we don't have a big population, and we have a low median income. We have a very large geographic area to cover. So what I found was it's very difficult to compare one county to the next The closest, I think, would be Piscataquis. And if you take a look at their budget, they have about half the amount of people that we do. They have about 17,000 people. We, I think, have about 31,000. And their county budget is about $7 million. So even just looking at it from that perspective, it's not that far off. But again, I understand what you're saying, and I will take a look at the counties that you suggested, but it's very difficult to make an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah. Waldo has 40,600 people. They have 98 employees. Sagadac has 37,000 people. They have 80 employees. Lincoln has 30.
Right, but you don't know about dispatch. We have,
They have 85 people. Washington County has 31,000 people, and we have 125 employees.
Right, I understand, but again, we would have to take a look and see what services are offered and the different individual challenges of that particular county, and I certainly will take a look.
I just find it ironic that so many counties within the same demographic almost have the exact same amount of people, except for Washington.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, we'd have to look at the services, and I'll take a look, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Some of the counties that you're referencing, they don't operate a jail. Some of them only operate a 72-hour hold. So, to operate a jail, that requires quite a number of people to do that. Yeah. I guess the other thing I
125 had 60,000 residents, double what Washington County had 125 employees.
I guess those other counties that you're referencing, they also have municipal police departments in there that we don't have really access to. And the other thing that they have access to is which are unfunded, which are understaffed, significantly understaffed. And so the other thing that those counties have that we don't is the state police presence. Washington County used to share state police with the sheriff's office as far as our call volume. That began to diminish years ago to the point now where the state police take 0 calls in Washington County.
Don't we have Border Patrol and the,
Border Patrol does not respond to state or county issues.
federally, I mean, I've seen them come in on
They'll come in and back us up if we need it, but they don't take 911 calls and respond to complaints. 100% of that now is handled by our Washington County deputies.
Maybe we need to look at having state police come back.
So there was a bill that was put in the legislature last year to put state troopers back in Washington County, but it's still sitting on the appropriations table where it'll probably die.
Unless you call all of them and request the need to have the state troopers present in the county. Excuse me? If you call the legislators and you tell them on appropriations that Washington County needs the state police presence, then that may help if the people call in and request it. But it's on the appropriations table.
We're waiting for funding. We've asked for it.
Okay, thank you.
For 4 of them.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.